Good morning and welcome to the New Media Show. My name is Todd Cochran, and I'm here with my co host, Rob Greenlee. Good morning, Rob.
Good morning, Todd. It's great to be here again. It's kind of cloudy and overcast in Seattle. And I know our guest is all the way on the other coast. So it's exciting to have Chase on.
Yeah, we've got the full triangulation out here in Honolulu. It is muggy. The trades are gone right now, so it's yucky. But we got Chase Jarvis from Creative Live on. Good morning, Chase. How are you?
Good morning. Really happy to be here. Thanks a lot, guys, for having me.
Yeah, and you're out in New York City. I tell you, I love going to New York, but I can handle it for about 2 or 3 days, and then I have to escape. But do you live in New York, or you're on
I
an East?
don't. I'm a Seattle guy through and through, but I'm on the road. Oh gosh, probably 200 days a year. So I spend a lot of time in New York, San Francisco, where Creative Live has a headquarters. Seattle and LA, they're all great cities. So I don't have any complaints.
I this year actually I haven't traveled as much as actually for the last like 3 months. It's been completely throttled back, and kind of was like you. I'd be gone, at least a week a month, and I'm really been kind of happy I've been home. It's been nice to have the off time, but it's not helping my status towards 100,000 miles this year, but. So I might come up 10,000 short. I don't know. We'll see. But I know Rob was been excited to have you on, and so have I, to talk about what you guys are doing over at Creative Live, and just kind of get a sense of what you guys are doing, because you guys are doing something different, really, than anybody out there. You're doing a lot of high production and kind of a premium model, correct? Or why don't you give everyone the
Sure.
411 on Creative Live?
Sure. I guess the short version is that we're connecting the world's top experts, Pulitzer Prize winners, New York Times bestsellers, photographers like Vincent LaFerre, authors and hackers like Tim Ferriss, guys like Guy Kawasaki. We're connecting them live with millions of people around the world and hope to share their knowledge. And the model is a freemium model. Anyone in the world can watch for free if you have an internet connection. And if you want to own a copy of the content, that's when you press buy. Imagine a TED Talk, but instead of 18 minutes, it's 1, 2, or 3 days with that same quality person and a really deep dive where you learn real skills.
Wow, so you actually give how many hours is a
Yeah.
typical, are you doing like 8 hours? Is it a session of instruction on something, or what is
Yeah,
the
it's usually like 6 hours a day for 1, 2, or 3 days.
wow.
Yeah, so it's a real deep dive on a particular topic. Say photography. It may be about lighting, for example, and maybe there's health and wellness class from Kelly Starrett, who's one of the foremost leaders in exercise physiology, and he would go for maybe 2 days. So that's the neat thing about it is you wake up in the morning and it's like education television basically, except it's good for you.
Rob, I had whoops. Let me flip back here. I'm all thumbs this morning when it comes to the switcher. A production company of one here. I had thought at one time, Rob, of doing a series, kind of do this big data dump on the new media space. And, I thought, okay, how do I do that? Do I have it so there's a streamed it live, and use somebody like Ustream and charge people for an entrance fee? Where's the success? And I think, well, if I did that short term, yeah, you're gonna have that bump of people that come in and pay, but really, where's the long term? Where's the long term payback? Because really, what you're looking at is content that it stays pretty relevant for a long time. So the long tail on this has to be pretty incredible. But I would think also, as you build up the inventory, it has this cumulative effect too, right? So you probably have guys coming back and doing more than one series, don't you?
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that we're excited about is we want to be the de facto place where these the top experts in the world hang their hat to share their knowledge, and it's become, I think, an important part of this sort of the new media world where there's the sharing of information, and most of these folks that I've mentioned, they are interested in giving back, and as you said, the corpus grows. We're streaming usually between 1 and 5 channels a day We have 4 different studios. We do remote broadcasts as well. And so you can go on and tune into the photography channel or the design channel and basically just take this stuff in. And as we broadcast all these live events, the catalog continues to just get massive, given how much content we're creating. I think it's really only like 24-hour news stations are creating more content than we are right now, which is super exciting. It taps into my background as a photographer and a filmmaker to have good production quality. And as you opened with not too long ago, we're really about, it's not necessarily a quantity thing. We want a super high quality, very very curated list. The list of people who want to be on Creative Live and then who get to, they're very different lists. And again, the teachers are the lifeblood of Creative Live, and the fact that we get students tuning in almost every day from every country in the world is really exciting to us. I think the average course attendance is about 25 to 30,000, and we've had courses north of 150,000. So
Wow.
That's great.
yeah,
Hey, I wanted
it's a great.
to kind of raise the whole topic of kind of the foundation of your model, is that the live portion of your classes, from what I gather, is always free, and then the on-demand piece is what you actually pay for. So you would pay for a whole class series, but the live part is always free. And I thought that was a fascinating model if you think about how that maybe is a correlation to podcasting and other types of online media. And I also wanted to ask you about on the free live part. So is there any consideration on your part about making that kind of sponsor supported, or what's the model, and what are you finding about the free live and then the on-demand paid part?
All those are great questions, Rob. So I got to give full credit where credit is due. My co-founder, Craig Swanson, who I wish he was sitting right here next to me to speak for himself, but he really came up with that model of the live event is free and you only have to pay if you want to own the content. And look, we're trying to transcend. There's 3 primary barriers to education. One is geographical. So if you're in Nebraska or Nairobi, we want to be able to connect you with the world's top experts. The other one is access to those top experts. Even if you were in New York, how are you going to get to sit down with a Tim Ferriss? And the last one is cost. Education has the costs in our country are just astronomical. Student debt is $1.1 trillion. It's larger than credit card debt. It's not forgivable from bankruptcy. It is just a total nightmare of a system. And so we're going to transcend those 3 barriers, and this model actually achieves that. So full credit to Craig in coming up with that model, and that's one of the things that we're most excited about, is it allows that sort of access. It's a lot of work to produce 1 to 4 live television shows for 6 hours a day. But again, I think the model has proven that from a business perspective, it works. We're able to provide education that's free or incredibly cheap if you do want to own the content. Instructors are on a revenue share, and so we've paid out millions of dollars to instructors. And then we have a business model that is thriving. So we've been profitable since the very beginning. So
I like the idea of the entire profit share stuff. It really makes sense. And Rob, if you guys remember when about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, when Raw Voice, we basically built this entire back end system to be able to do a kind of the same model that they've got at Creative Live. But our real whole business plan was just kind of for that particular vertical that we were going to work with was strictly for content creators, and not content like this, because we really didn't know what we were going to get. It was to have content folks come up and put their content up and make it available as Creative Live does. But the main difference here, and we found that model just didn't scale well enough, is because of the content we were getting. Is what Chase has done here is very smart. He's got a studio in New York. They're shooting it there. It's all very high quality from well-known names. Same model, different approach. one successful one, and of course ours. We took ours down.
You guys are great. Got
Well,
me stuck.
what we had done was, really we had thought that there was going to be this huge market for podcasters to put up their premium stuff. And when we had went out and said, okay, if we build a site where you can put your content up and charge for a monthly fee or whatever is how many of you want to do it, and we got this great response. We said, okay, the numbers make sense based on the response, and we went back and we built this thing. We took a couple, 6-8 weeks, whatever it was, to implement, basically fold it into our current back end, and it's okay, guys, it's available. And then 6 weeks later, 10 people had signed up. We're like, this is dumb. So I said, well, we threw that paper wad up against the wall and it didn't stick, so let's get rid of it. And but I think what you guys have done here, and I'm just kind of cruising through the site a little bit as as we're talking here. And here's, for example, is I got a kid that's got a drum set, a digital drum set in the garage. And here's a show on digital drums with Easy Drummer. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, he could go crazy over this to watch this segment. And there's a couple of things in here that I'm looking to add as well, as some After Effects stuff. And
Yeah, oh, that last class, Isle Levy, like he's an amazing producer. He's worked on so many great records. Just yesterday or just Thursday, we had a class from Steve Rennie, who was the manager of the rock band Incubus, and he talked about networking in the music industry and how that's a really important part of
wow.
it. So there's some business, there's a business sort of horizontals that cut across all this. Because again, the name of the company is Creative Live, and we believe that creativity is the new literacy. And if you look at it's a very zeitgeist term that captures so much, whether it's creativity in business or photography, filmmaking, design, all those things that I sort of alluded to earlier. That I feel like the hope is that we can transform people's lives, whether it's, you're a hobbyist and you want to take it to the professional level, or you just want to get away from your cubicle. The hope is that by connecting you with these, the world's top experts in these fields, that you're going to really derive a ton of value. And I think, knock on wood, so far it's working out really well, as shown by the community. It's rallying around us. So,
Rob.
Yeah, it seems like that the time may be coming for this to be a much more popular kind of model, because I think we saw online just last week, Vimeo announced some premium kind of packages to offer to video content providers, and I know that there's been talk on YouTube about doing a similar kind of thing too. So it does make me wonder if Creative Live has kind of started something here, and that there may be an upswing in content moving in this direction. I don't know, Chase, what do you think about that?
I think that's really astute to call that out. And that when we think about, for the first 2 years, we were completely bootstrapped. And then last June, not this most recent June, but a year ago, June, we took a Series A from Greylock Ventures and a handful of other angels, an $8 million Series A, and to help us scale. And one of the things that we found when, we were just building this little thing up in Seattle and just getting ginormous audiences, and we were really happy about what we were doing. And then I took a trip down to Sand Hill Road with our CEO, Mika Salmi, who's a great guy. I'd love to talk about him a little bit later. But we went down to Sand Hill Road down in Silicon Valley and sort of opened up the kimono and showed them, hey, is this interesting to you guys? And 100% of them were just eyeballs big as saucers, because of, I think, this intersection, as you mentioned, of super high quality, great access, and then that there's a real business model in there, and that freemium model. If you look, and this is, I think, what the venture folks were seeing, is you look at companies that have run away with spaces. You look at a Spotify or Pandora, a Dropbox, for example. They're all freemium, right? You can have access to the content or access to the service for free, and it's only Evernote, for example. That's one of my favorite apps of all time. I use that thing 25 times a day, and so the companies that have been really successful, there's certainly a solid trend looking toward that, down that alley.
So when you guys, and I'm kind of a process guy, so I think this is kind of interesting. So you built a studio in New York, and I know that even a
Actually,
lot.
so we got Seattle and we got San Francisco. I
Okay,
happen to be in New
Yeah.
York because there's a lot of media stuff here. So we've got
okay,
12,000 square feet in Seattle and 12,000 square feet in San Francisco with numerous sound stages. So
okay. So it'd
via
be
there.
very expensive to get 12,000 square feet in New York. That is, and good luck
Yeah.
finding it first. Um,
Yeah, 12 square
so
feet in the
with
Potrero neighborhood of San Francisco, and it's not cheap, but it's
right,
a beautiful neighborhood, and we built it from the ground up. As you said, it's not cheap, but we want to be where there's great infrastructure, where there's great talent, and near a lot of high-powered folks down there in Silicon Valley. So
yeah.
it's helpful.
So is when you guys, when you bring someone in to do this, I'm sure you've got people running cameras and everything else. How does the whole process work? Do they have to submit their outline? I'm sure you guys have, starting to refine. You just don't say just go.
No,
You got to
very
have a plan.
knowing that you're a process guy, it is something that we have refined, and that's again, it's another barrier. Is live television is very difficult. There's a reason
Right.
that there's
Yeah.
only whatever 50 channels in the U.S. and not many of them want to run live stuff because it's
Right.
really hard. It's
It's hard.
expensive. Um, that again, my background as a image maker, a photographer, and a director was helpful. That was one of the things that when Craig and I got together, there was a lot of expertise there. But it's very much process driven. The things that I'm most proud of is how much we support our instructors, our experts, and they get a content producer assigned to them, a producer, and it is very complicated. There's 20 people producing probably every class, and that's largely employees, but we do hire a contingency of contractors to support, and but it's very much helping the experts and the instructors craft their message in a way that's going to resonate with our audiences because we've known them well, and we have an amazing relationship with the folks that pay attention to what we do. So it's processed from both the line production, like here's where the cameras start and stop, and there's someone who's directing all that stuff, and then also with the content because we want to make it so that they can get their message out.
Yeah, doing a After Effects class is, probably largely screen driven, but sometimes it takes a lot to keep someone's attention. Okay, I watch it for the first hour. I'm like, okay, I got what I need, and I'm going to move on. Do you guys index the content and stuff then so that people can jump around if they need to when they purchase the product, or how does the
That's
deliverables go on that?
without tipping our hand. That's sort of a direction that we're very excited about. We've recently hired just some amazing folks to have come on board our team. We recently hired Brent Airy, who is the head of product at Netflix, built that streaming product that is the largest streaming product in the world. And so we are happy to have Brent on board, and that challenge that you just highlighted is one of the things that we're excited to be working on. And I mentioned earlier Mika Salmi, who's our CEO. Mika, he created a company. You guys may have, you guys there's some Seattle blood there. He created a company called Atom Films, which was one of the early
Yeah.
short form, entertainment companies online. You remember that, Rob?
Oh, I do. Yeah, he got huge traffic for short videos, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he created that, and ultimately merged with Shockwave and did games, and then
Yeah.
sold that to Viacom for I think 200 million. So he had a really successful exit there, but producing short form online content. So he's an absolute pioneer in that space. And then he actually went and became the president of Viacom Digital here in New York, where he managed all 32 of their television brands worldwide. So those kind of guys like Brent, guys like Mika, that were able to attract that talent. Those when you're running something at those scales, process is really important. Um, and the content has to be there. That's sort of the get in the door technique. That's the get in the door need. If that's not good, no one's going to watch. So we're trying to build a lot of things. The ability to communicate between. I think this is another thing that I should probably highlight is so the primary delivery mechanism is live video, and we already touched on live and how important live is because students, those 20, 30,000 students from all over the world, they're actually helping direct the content in the same way that you would
Hmm.
if you were in a classroom of 30. because questions are coming in via Facebook and Twitter. We have we have folks moderating those discussions, and then firing those questions on to the instructor who's standing in front of that live video. And then we also have chat that enables the students to connect with one another. So there's the same dynamic that we've got in a classroom, except we're just able to do it at scale.
So,
Go ahead, Rob.
oh yeah, I was just going to say, what you've tapped in here is a model that probably can be applied more generally to the education sector. Is there any thought that you're thinking around kind of expanding this beyond kind of the creative part and moving into other types of areas? I know it's probably a big enough job just to manage what you have going right now, but do you think that this concept that you have is totally usable, like at a university or at other types of true education types of environments?
Yes. So it's sort of a multi-part question there. I would say that we have seen only positive indications that this works and can work for auto mechanics to training doctors to test prep to cooking. What we have chosen to focus on is creativity, and maybe that's because it's sort of the soul of the company, the founders, the background. But I feel like the model works. I think we believe the model works at scale for almost any education industry. And then regarding creativity, the reason we're attacking that first is because we feel like that there's an amazing opportunity to transform lives. I am the story of someone who's doing everything that everyone else thought I should do. I dropped out of medical school, quit a PhD program in philosophy of art to pursue the career that I wanted to do more than anything in the world, which is to be an artist. And that took a lot of guts. And so there's a passion for serving others like me. That's one of the things that I wanted to do, was to give folks that gift. And whether, again, you are just a hobbyist, or you want to escape your day job and do this, or you want to become a professional, that's who we wanted to tackle first. And when you think about creativity, that term, art is a very small subset of creativity. Creativity is E equals MC squared. Creativity is the invention of the wheel. Creativity is all fundamental human problems are going to be solved by creativity. And we have an education system currently in our country that is sadly based on two very, very irrelevant things. One is the factory, and the other is the farm.
Yep.
So why do kids go to school 9 months a year and have 3 months off in the summer? It's not because that they don't learn as well when it's sunny out.
Yeah.
The reason that it's this archaic system of they had to go harvest the crops. So, and I'm not advocating to go to school more, but that we have a system which is still reflective of that. And then to talk about the factory is something where you put raw material in one end of the factory, and out the other you try and make widgets that are the same, that are good at doing the same thing. And if you apply that to the human condition, we don't actually want to make everyone the same, put everyone in the same track. People learn at different rates, people learn at different scales, people learn different ways. So we're trying to address all that, and we believe that creativity is an amazing path, and the initial path to that. So a little bit of a long answer. I just don't want to shortchange you guys. This is what we believe.
No, it's great. It was a great answer.
And my brain just explodes because there's so much stuff that I have advocated for such a long time. You look at China and the issues they're having there. Chinese are great duplicators, and they're not very creative. And the reason that they're not is because they have such a rigid education system that they have to do certain things to progress and make it through and go into university and to get a degree. And it makes them robots, and they don't have this big creative base. I think here in the United States, we're lucky that we have great creative people, but at the same time, the whole education system, my son is huge. He loves robotics. He loves building. That's his passion. If he could build one from the bottom up, that's his thing. And what was he given in school to nurture that is nothing more than maybe an after-school activity. He knows what he wants to do for a career. So what I have to do now is I got to feed the beast with stuff, with kits and buying stuff and online. And so for me, I've always said that would it not be cool if I could find those guys that are like the premier guys in the robotics industry and get them to do just as they're doing at Creative Live, sit down and talk for a week, if it takes a week for them to do a data dump. And, my biggest education I ever got, I'm prior military, and the biggest education I ever got in the electronics was I was working on a project with someone who was absolutely brilliant. He was a fellow at a national lab. So to become a fellow at a national lab, you got to have this brain that's coming out to here. It's huge. You're a huge brain. So like every third word he said, I would be like, huh. That's really he was at that level. But spending a week with this guy gave me this it was like having 3 years of PhD exposure in college. I mean not maybe like super focused, but that has paid dividends for years for me, is that that time with that guy. So I think what you guys are doing, Chase, is right dead on, because where does the kid go that wants to be he go to film school, and spend 4 years or 3 years or whatever it is in film school, and then he comes out and he's got the basics, but he's not going to have exposure to the right kind of people.
I don't know.
So
Talking over there, he's got $150,000 worth of debt if you go to
right,
Yeah.
4 years of film school. Like that it's just astronomical, and that's sort of what I was harping on earlier.
yeah,
The way that we have approached student debt in our country is
it's
absolutely,
crazy.
we're handcuffing kids with this enormous debt under the belief. There's a narrative that has been played in our culture for some time, and it's completely a false narrative at this point, which is that if you go to college, get good grades, you're going to get a great job.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
absolutely false narrative. There's 343,000 students in the class of 2012 that are going to be working minimum wage jobs, flipping burgers with a college degree, and
Yep.
37% of those folks have advanced degrees.
Yep.
So now this narrative that we continue to propagate culturally, because it sounds like the American dream, it's anything but. It's a handcuff and it's a ball and chain.
And you're going up against the machine, and man, that just to me is like, sign me up, because I've got a daughter that's about ready to graduate this year, and so what is the choice? At this point, I would love for her to be able to sit down and do what she wants online, get the basics of what she knows, and get her out there and she can start working, or applying her skills and getting experience. But no, if the difference, and sadly, this is the thing. It sucks what you're talking about and we're really getting off topic here, and maybe not, but the machine and the farm, if she gives them $120,000, she comes out with a bachelor's degree and says, "Ho ho ho, I'm qualified." And then but sadly, the problem is if you have a high school diploma, and this doesn't happen in all instances, but if you have a high school diploma and a bachelor's degree, the earnings potential is huge. It's $40,000 right off the get-go annually, that typically someone would make, vice versa between the two. But I think folks that are being able to get an education online, it comes to you with the passion of what they
Yeah.
really want to do, not what they've been forced to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot more hiring that's being done that doesn't require a college degree now. And I think
hope.
the more and more companies are starting to realize that the best employees are the ones that are skilled and knowledgeable and passionate about what they're doing, and whether or not they have a college degree in it or not is becoming less important. So I think that does open the door for these type of learning environments that can be totally different than what we all kind of grew up with. I've got a college degree in marketing. Sure, I stayed in that area, and I continue to work in the marketing area, but it's certainly, I don't think it's required now to be successful, get a job and be successful, is to have a college degree. So I think this is totally aligning with, I think, where the market is moving.
Rob, my degree's in professional aeronautics by Emory-Riddle. Why? And here, what am I doing? I'm running
Yeah.
a media company.
Yeah.
So I almost think that anymore you can go to college and get a degree in basket weaving, and then as long as you get the degree in basket weaving, you go out and then you really go after what you want to do. It's just
Yeah.
half-ass backwards is what it is.
Send somebody down that path if it's not useful.
Right.
It's because there's a massive industry, a cronyism industry that's funding and fulfilling all of these sort of false obligations. And again, without being on my soapbox, I'm not saying that a college education is a bad thing. It's very relevant for a lot of things,
Right.
but a huge cross section of the population, a huge cross section of skill sets for what it's not meaningful. And so we have to, as a culture, be able to identify which in which cases this is a benefit to someone, in which case it's not,
Right.
and be with giving opportunity and options to those folks who it's not the best track for. And we haven't done that. And so that is really, when you said we're fighting the machine, I think we're just trying to empower a culture that has realized that that they are in control of their future, and their future isn't the script that someone else has written for them. It's their own. You talked about your kids and what they want to pursue, and we're just trying to enable that part of the world. And I lived through that, which is one of the reasons that, my co-founder Craig as well, he dropped out of both high school and college. He dropped out of high school, dropped out of college, and I mentioned earlier all the things that I had to quit to pursue my dreams, and I think we both feel lucky and stronger because of it.
Yeah, I think anytime someone takes stacks of $100 bills out of higher education is a hero on my standpoint, because it is and I go back to what you said too, is that I agree there's a time and a place for certain things. Electrical engineers, those guys probably need to go to school.
I want my doctor to be certified.
That's right.
Yeah.
They do. But, the guys are doing film, the guys are doing marketing, the guys, there's a lot of stuff they're just, the best have the natural ability and also have good mentors. And, you guys are exposing people to great mentors.
That's the hope. That's the hope behind Creative Life. So,
Yeah, very, very cool.
So somehow, through this, the big universities and colleges need to embrace this model at some point. Chase, what do you think is that on the horizon? Are we starting to see that happen already? I know that there's the iTunes U, and it feels like places like Stanford and things are putting out podcasts, and they're putting out full classes and things like that. But do you see that as the answer, or do you see more the model of hands-on, which is more like what you're doing, as the model that the universities need to be moving towards?
I feel like, obviously I carry with me some bias. I was just in London and got to sit down with a handful of the founders of a lot of the other MOOC, which is a term called Massive Online Open Courses. Some of the other folks that are in our sort of genre, and sit down with some founders of some of those companies, and the CEO of Pearson, which is the largest education company in the world, a guy named John Fallon, and we get to sit around and talk about this stuff. And one of the things, again, I don't want to indict them too much, but I feel like I gotta call it like I see it, which is, in large part, there's sort of a cultural pandering, or a desire to plug the current moving toward online scalable education into a system that is just perpetuating all of the same challenges that we just identified.
Mhm.
And so I'm biased against that, because I don't feel like it taps into the things that our culture really needs, which is not more student debt and not just a big 101 class held by a professor. Now, I do applaud the belief in scalable education online. I'm just not quite sure that some of those other folks that are partnering with universities, I don't think they understand what we need is a seismic fundamental shift in education, not just putting a Band-Aid on the current the current thing, and putting a syllabus online and allowing you to download the recording. That's not online education.
No.
Online education is the same experience that you're having in a classroom where you can interact with the students and the instructor in the same way that you would. It's scalable, and that's what we're trying to build. Learning isn't broken, education is broken. So that's sort of the way that we're trying to approach it, is by giving people something different to chew on.
And I've always thought too that K through 12. There's a big frustration here in Hawaii. The school system is fundamentally an irreversible broke. It's been that way for years and years and years. We always rank at the bottom. So I spend a lot of money. I don't make enough money to send my kids to private school here because it is incredibly expensive. Just scale of economics in Hawaii. There's not as many options. But so what I do is I supplement that with secondary education during the summer, and trying to feed their brains with good stuff, and hopefully in the end it'll work out. But my sister has homeschooled one of her kids for a couple of years now, and they bought different programs, and the best one they found so far is the one where it's actually live. It's where they're actually watching a live stream of a classroom, and there is this interaction going on. And I think that's where maybe some of the K through 12 stuff is going to go. So if it's going to work there, it's going to expand later. But K through 12 is a big difference because there's each state has their own education requirements and testing, but when it comes to the machine, to get that accreditation, is the and sadly, and it's again what you're trying to not necessarily break, but kind to adjust, is that how do you let's say you guys go the course here, and you got a whole series on becoming a filmmaker, and it's basically weeks and weeks of content, and you walk out the end of the door with a piece of paper that says, "Hey, I've just completed the Creative Live film series." When do we get to the point where a employer is going to say, "My God, come on, let's talk," So, and then compete him with that other person that's got that, like a music degree from Juilliard or someplace like that. So,
I just stood on stage on, what day is today? Today's Saturday. I stood on stage on Thursday at the GeekWire Summit in Seattle, which is I don't know, 500 or 600 people get together and talk about a lot of geeky topics, and one of them was creativity and online education. So I got to talk with Monica Guzman, who's a fantastic journalist that writes for GeekWire and the Seattle Times and a handful of things. And we got to talk about, go back to that meeting that I had in London, and they're so focused on the measurement of students. That's where almost all of the resources go, is how do we get completion rates? How do we know that they know the material? How do they, and admittedly, this is more of a K through 12 issue, I believe, than stuff that we're working on. But we actually completely do away with measurement, because we believe that if you're actually there because you want to be there, that you are the best filter for whether or not you know the material. Right. And the indicators are, since it's free, you try and take the class that's a little bit more advanced, and you're not able to know the material, then you know that you don't know the material, and so you go back to a different one. Yeah, maybe a little bit luxurious because it's not necessarily something like math, but there's a whole host of challenges that the K through 12 folks face that we don't. But wouldn't it be a different and more interesting world, perhaps, if I'm not against the fundamentals, I'm highly for them, but what if we could steer, or we would let the student, him or herself, guide their learning? I think that it'd probably be beneficial for the culture, and we could take some of those resources, which again, something like 30 to 50% of the time in school is taken either preparing for a test or taking a test.
Yeah.
And we all love that, don't we?
I think if I'd have let my daughter direct her education, she would have been a dropout already. So she would have chose none of the above. Oh, but yeah, very, very cool. Wow. So, let's we kind of come back to Creative Live, and I know you say that you've got a lot of people lined up that want to, produce something. And, then how's your process then to, I don't want to say weed them out, but pick the cream. How's the process for that?
We have a whole team internally that's their sole job is identifying, cultivating talent. And what we're after is maintaining a very, very high quality. And the fact that someone wants to be on Creative Live is not necessarily that's not the measuring stick. So the measuring stick is, are you an expert? And do you have the ability to communicate your message? And so we find that the people that are at the top of their game, they're all already sort of teaching or giving back, or they're authors, writers. They speak at professional orators. They speak their truth at at whether it's just the GeekWire Summit or at TED or any of these other places. They are already doing this. We're not necessarily trying to find someone who's really knowledgeable and make them into a teacher, because the desire and the ability to teach is very much something that we believe needs to be intentional. So it's a pretty rigorous process. I'm not going to lie to you. We've got a whole team that's their job, is to filter that, and we have people both internally and resources externally that are very, very connected at the highest levels of each of these verticals, in audio and music, in photography, in business, for example, where I've already mentioned a half a dozen total badasses in the business world. So those are the folks that we're tapping into, and it's not a lightweight process.
And you know what I like too, Rob, is that, for example, I'm looking here at, we'll just take the After Effects course, the beginner's one. And believe me, I'm not a video editor. I chop, and compress. That's my extent. So, looking at the After Effects course, $99. Can't beat it. Cannot beat it. That's, and looking at the course coverage, and what I like about it is I can consume it as I have time. Buy it and it's going to be available, and I don't have the luxury of being able to watch live. Some people do. So for me, $99, that's like nothing for a class.
To be so overwhelmingly valuable that that the reaction is exactly what you described, which is like, oh my God, of course, duh. And yet, for the same person who doesn't have $99,
yeah,
you can, whether you're in Australia or Europe or wherever, that if the knowledge is there and you don't have the money, that you're willing to sit down in front of a computer. Because most folks, if you have resources, you don't have time. And if you don't have, if you have, sorry, I got lost here. If you have resources and you don't have time, if you have time, then you probably don't have as much resources. So we're trying to address those challenges, and it's easy to press that $99 button.
Right.
And someone else who that's a big hurdle, the classes are there for them. And that's one of the things we're proud of.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's really fascinating about what we're doing, I know this is a challenge in the podcasting space, is people finding good content, because it's like open to everyone. But what you're doing here, and as I think about this, I look at your video and film section, and I think to myself, this is really, I would take one of your courses. I mean, I'm really in a heartbeat, just because I trust the brand, and I know that the quality of what you guys are producing is well worth the money. And I think that's the piece that is very important here, is trust, right? And trust around the brand and around what the content is. I would probably trust on taking a class here over watching a video podcast. Yeah, I hate to say that, but that's probably pretty accurate to what you're finding too.
Well, I think from an education standpoint, that's true, Rob. But thing, and I get weirded out many times, is that I'm online looking for something, and I find a snake oil salesman that's selling me his 10-hour course in this, and I'm like, $399, and you can, I'm like, no, I'm not buying that.
Yeah, we recently did a survey, and did a little study, and we found it was very, very accurate what you guys are just describing. That sort of alignment with the high quality, trusted name is something that makes people want to turn to Creative Live. And as sort of evidenced by the crazy numbers that we're posting, I think we've just recently crossed 15 million learning hours consumed. And it's the folks turn to Creative Live because, again, it's highly curated. The quality of the content is so high, and there are a lot of snake oil salesmen out there online. And we're trying to be anything but that. We have a high degree of transparency, and that there's another part of it I haven't really mentioned, which is that we actually have a live in studio audience as well. So people compete from all over the world to get to fly to Seattle, and so the teachers are teaching
Oh, that's
in.
cool.
So they're not just looking at a camera, and in many ways, what ends up being it's just a beautiful cross section of the people in the world who are interested in those things, and so whether you're in as I mentioned earlier, Nebraska or Nairobi, and you're watching that expert, that Pulitzer Prize winner or New York Times bestseller or whatever, interacting with these other students, you're sort of able to put yourself in that place, and they're asking the same questions that you would ask, and so there's a really nice benefit that is also very, very different than all of the other folks who are making online education, because it's very much, you get to see other people learning. That's one of the most important factors in learning.
That's cool. I didn't know that you actually had people there watching
Yeah,
and
they
interacting.
participate in all the same stuff that you're doing when you're sitting at home in your underwear, except they're
Right.
on stage right with the expert.
And with the right person, you're going to, of course, people are saying, hey, I get to come watch for free. So that it's worth for them to, book an airline ticket and a hotel room and come out and stay.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
because you
Absolutely, absolutely brilliant.
thanks. Again, we're learning all the time. I don't want to pretend that we've got all the answers, because we know. And it's sort of like the way I talk about it is like when you walk into your garage and piles of stuff in there, you know, under the carpet, so to speak.
I had said a long time ago that if you got people, like the late Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, just imagine if someone could have taken, if we could have gotten Steve Jobs to have spent a week and just talk to a camera about every facet of business and the creative process and his mind thoughts and all that stuff, to me, would have been so invaluable, and look at what we lost. We lost this fantastic mind that only really the people that worked around him got the exposure to him in a deep, deep way. Um, and so, one of the small things, and this is completely unrelated, but when my grandparents were getting older in their 90s, before they were starting to have some of the issues people have when they're later in life about remembering stuff. I sat down for a week, ran tape on them. This is before digital cameras, ran tape on them for a week and said, okay, tell me about 1907 and tell me about the Great Depression so I got all this from a family perspective down. To me, that's just a treasure to me. So, you know, as you guys are working forward and bringing these treasures in, these people are treasures. It's invaluable because a lot of this stuff is going to show the test of time, and it'll be additional as additional people come into space. I think it's going to be pretty incredible, and I think I understand why the VC's got wide eyeballs. Now the question is, can you guys survive long enough and make this? I know you're profitable. You said you're profitable, but can you guys scale this long enough and keep the culture the same before someone comes in and swoops you up and buys you? Because you're going to get bought. Let's just let's be straight up. That's going to happen. So you're going to be able to keep that culture through an acquisition, or I know I'm really asking a
Yeah, I
tough
don't think
question.
you can answer that question. Yeah.
The way I would answer it is like we're building a company. We're building 100 years, and if in the middle somewhere that gets interrupted, then we'll have to take it on a case by case basis. But we're not sort of building this thing to flip it. You could probably already imagine we've had all kinds of opportunities. Where one of the things that was also earlier in the conversation was talking about sponsorships and all that. Like, well, yeah, we've had just all of that stuff has come our way, but we're really focused on the education part, and we're focused on building a great company that the business model that we've stumbled on is very sustainable. We feel like it's widely applicable, and right now we're just going to drive that. There's all kinds of opportunities for other revenue streams. And whether we're a sexy acquisition for somebody in the future, only time will tell. But we're focused on building something great.
Yeah, it's awesome, Rob.
Well, I think that it's uh, really what you're doing is starting a revolution, and I think in and I see it as something that's so needed, and I would love to see it applied to so many other areas as well, just like what we've talked about here. It's just a matter of actually doing it. I think the model is there. You've proven it. I think it's just a matter. I think we're seeing signs of it across the industry. I mean, at places like YouTube, it's certainly not being done at the level that you're doing it here, and you're seeing some of it in podcasting. I mean, I think it's definitely a groundswell that's happening. It's in and you guys are really showing us the way of really the best way to do it. So I really applaud you and what you guys have accomplished here.
Yeah, and I think and I think too, Rob, is that they're really being careful that everyone's an expert. That I think they're taking the time to really say, okay, who really is the expert? Who is that top shelf guy or gal? And
So I think that there's room for a lot more people to actually do this. It may not be at Creative Live, but I think that there are a lot of folks that aren't like the top 5% experts, but certainly, and podcasting is a great example of that, right? There's people that have passion. There's a lot of people that have passion. They may not be the tops of their business, but they can certainly build an audience too. So there needs to be a solution for them as well.
yeah, and
Yeah,
go ahead.
I can. Sorry, that'll. I think that's part of what can scale over time. You focus on sort of the core to get to the mass, and I think the same can be said for experts. And is it now it's just highly curated, and maybe someday there's a marketplace, or I think there's a we've seen a lot of folks try some of the other MOOCs, if you will, or the online education stuff, but they if you don't have it be very high quality, especially at the beginning, then you really haven't been able to get traction, generally speaking. So I think what you indicate, Rob, is absolutely true, that it's going to continue to expand and broaden. We just want to keep it really tight until we have every indication that it's sort of safe to go broader.
Oftentimes I'll see a TED talk, and I know you talked about bringing people in that do TED talks and those types, but oftentimes I'll see a TED talk and I go like, where? Let me go find this guy, and I'll go looking online for this person, and
You can't find them.
can't find them. And they're or they are they have a presence and they have some blog or something, but they really don't have this. They give this fantastic TED talk. I'm like, I want to think more about I want to hear more what this guy has to say, and just can't find him. And it just drives me absolutely insane when that happens, because I think so many people have a lot to contribute, but they just don't have the platform, or maybe the,
confidence
confidence.
I don't know. I mean,
I don't know what it is either, but I'm sure you guys run into that all the time. Do you get people that you want on that you can't get on?
Generally speaking, we don't ever want to force anyone to do it. It needs to be something that they're passionate about.
Sure.
What we have done is sort of, in a couple of cases, uncovered some nascent talent. Like, we see a spark in you based on this thing that you did over here, and we would support you if this is something that you wanted to do. And that has turned out really well for us a couple of times. Again, full credit to our talent team. And again, the fact that we hold their hands as much as we do and help them, we don't have to do that for everybody, but the fact that we're happy to give someone an opportunity if it's, they have all the indicators that they're going to be really great online.
Do you?
And go ahead, sorry.
Do you guys then cover all production costs, or do they have to help in that production costs?
We do everything. And that's another thing that we want to focus on, is we want them to do the thing that they do better in the world than anyone else. And we'll do the thing that we're better in the world at than anyone else. Right. And ideally, that's a nice partnership, which is one of the reasons that we share revenue with our instructors.
This is Man, I tell you, just you got a fan right here, just in an hour. And I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of people that are probably have not had a lot of exposure to you guys. I want to go over to the website for just a second, Rob. If you've got a question, go ahead. But I see that as we're looking at this, you have a calendar of what's going to be upcoming, and then of course products that have been finished already. So right now it's primarily photography, business, software, design, video, and film. But I also see up at the top you've got lifestyle in an audio section. Design though. How do you teach someone design? And I think designers are born. I don't think designers are built. Are they?
Yeah,
But
well,
it's
that's a good.
skills. Yeah.
Go ahead, Rob. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Todd. I was just going to say it's skills and using tools to make you a better designer, right?
Yeah, I feel like there's a couple of there are fundamentals that you can teach. Again, it goes back to that skill-based learning as opposed to sort of theoretical.
Hmm.
And to be able to identify something that's good or tasteful and something that's not good, I think that is something that comes out when you spend time with these people who are of the top echelon. You understand what they think and how they think and why they think that. And so that sort of comes out. It's sort of like by osmosis, if you will, even when you're learning the skill based focus. So design is a great example. We're going to just be pushing a lot harder in that. And there's so many opportunities in design. Design is such a big field in and of itself, and we're sort of excited to dig deeper in that. And I mentioned earlier the audio stuff that we're doing. We just put a heading on top of the site on that one as well. And I have a huge appreciation for music. Mika Salmi, our CEO, he discovered the Nine Inch Nails. He signed Trent Reznor before anybody else, and he was an A&R guy at Sony before he was in the media. Before he was a CEO at Atom Film. So you'll see more music and audio from us in the future. That's something we're also excited about. And then lifestyle that you mentioned right now is sort of a catch-all. We've got a lot of health and wellness courses that go up in that realm. In there, yeah, you see there's personal finance. There's Ramit Sethi, guys like Kelly Starrett. Yoga, some of that stuff that we're sort of experimenting with, and it's been really, really fun to see that part become part of the fabric of Creative Live.
I think a lot of what they're doing here, Rob, marries up to like what Ming Yang is doing over at Quick and Dirty Tips. It's
Yep.
they're obviously doing stuff in a much very shorter snippet, but if you're looking for some more people, you ought to look over at quickanddirtytips.com. Look at they've got some great folks too. They're putting content up online, and I know they're always looking to expand. So might be another place to find some talent.
We're starting high and low, so any tips are welcome. And that's another thing. We've got this great community, and we get to listen to them. We get to ask them who is exciting to you right now in your space, and more often than not, they tell us, and it's a really easy relationship. We ask them what they want, and then we're able to provide it for them. And I think that's what good companies do that, right? We may wrangle it in a way. Apple, I think they're pretty intuitive about what their customers want, but they are able to build amazing products, and that's sort of what we want to be able to ask our folks what they want. And even if they can't put it out in words, we want to be able to take that feedback and do a little bit of the research and sprinkle a little magic sauce on there to give them what it is that they want. So we're either told overtly, or we can sort of infer what our folks want.
Yeah, Todd, I can see so many content areas that could be explored here. From live concerts to conferences to just a plethora of stuff. I mean, celebrities doing a series on acting, or like an actor's studio kind of thing. I mean, there's just so much that can be done here, and it's just amazing.
I will say that two investors in Creative Live are William Endeavor and CAA, which are the two largest Hollywood talent agencies in the world. So
Yeah,
it's
that's great.
you're flipping over some interesting stones there, Rob.
Yeah.
Well, it's just your brain starts to work, and you think about this, and that's the fun thing about. And I'm sure it's got to be fun working at Creative Live because you're getting, just think of the education the staff is getting with exposure to all these folks because you're really if you're there, you're consuming it whether you want to or not, and your brain is definitely getting filled with good stuff. And I like that. I think that's an important thing too today. There is so much crap on TV.
Yeah.
Why do people want to fill their brain with this junk when there's so much stuff that is positive? So far as you guys is live, are you guys mostly live on Pacific time or what? What is do you find some niche hours? And probably these folks have regular JOBs. So
Right.
do they come in after hours and do live, or how does that? Is it all over the map?
It's a good question. The way we are currently doing it is that we generally broadcast sort of live 9 to 4 on Pacific time, which, frankly speaking, Pacific time is not the best time zone for reaching the widest audience. That way we get to tap into East and Europe. But later in the day, that starts to get pretty late. So what we do is we immediately flip on a rewatch of that day's live material for free. So it's sort of like it's live and you get a chance to see it if
Right.
you're on the other side of the globe. But that is an opportunity to expand, from different languages and to different time zones and whatnot. So I'm not I'm not saying we're going there, but that's you highlighted something that's logical to consider for sure. We're just looking at the math and what we find is that we want to continue to build the product such that whether it's live or not, you get a really deep and rich experience like the live creates.
Right.
So,
That's one thing. Living in Hawaii, if I really want to do business with the East Coast, I got to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning, or 4, and I'm not a morning person at all. So even for me, getting up at 5 to do this show, so that it's early enough in the day that we don't completely destroy someone's schedule is, it was the goal here. But for me, from doing my show, my other show I do, I start at 8 o'clock at night Hawaiian time. That's 2 a.m. on the East Coast. No one's watching on the East
right.
Coast. So I don't expect to get a big live audience, but I count on that's what's going to be put up on the net to be delivered is where I'm going to make my bacon, I guess, for better words. And I think where you guys are in, and obviously you've got the live. So if I'm watching live, it's like, man, there's so much good stuff here. I need to have that repository of data later to go back and review. So it's one feeds the other, and that's just it's fantastic.
Todd, since
There's a oh sorry, go ahead.
no, yeah, I was just going to mention since both Todd and I come from kind of the podcasting world. I mean, granted, we do live video and we do other stuff too. Um, I have to ask the question: is there a piece that podcasting can be applied to your model at all? And what do you see as far as around video podcasting and audio podcasting? Does that have a place in your model at all?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like one of the challenges to our content is that it is so large and lumbering, right? If you are not, it's one of the things that, I'm glad we have a long form show here. We can talk about it. And for the folks that are listening at home, you really have to be able to process some of this to understand the breadth and depth and what's possible on a platform like Creative Live. And the way that, we look at our content is it's very meaty. There's no question. It's like trying to drink from a fire hose.
Hmm.
And so where podcasting, for example, could fit in, or smaller, shorter YouTube promotions, is in and around slightly lighter weight content. So we never want to get fluffy and soft. We want to be able to deliver a ton of value and that hard hitting stuff that you can only really get from the people who have done it. And that's what Creative Live is, a place where doers go to teach. But I see an opportunity for some lighter weight content that's maybe like drinking from a 2-liter bottle as opposed to a fire hose.
I think most of us only have if you're an expert in a space, my time is there's a matter of fact I've gotten to the point now where I don't have enough time. It's just I used to have extra time. It's gone. The extra time is gone, and I've had to carve out extra time. So if you've got someone that's expert in space, their time is so limited. For me, when I try to do a consulting call or something, I mean, it's 100% fire hose. You better have your mouth open because it's coming. It's coming full stream, and I don't want to spend a lot of time going back over the contents. I think for the experts, that's the only way you can really find time in their schedules to do it is pump it out fire hose style. But so
You
maybe
can't have like a Guy Kawasaki coming in three
right,
times a week for two
right.
hours.
No, it
It's
don't
just too
work.
busy. So
Yeah.
that is in part how you see the model shaped up, because it's just efficient, if you will. But you definitely you identified it, and there's something else. There's like a little bit of a divergent, a little tweak. It is something that both you guys indicated at various times throughout the conversation here, which is you highlighted a conference, or you said the word conference, and opportunities to disrupt or sort of expand that. And so I will point to starting on Monday, we have something that's called Photo Week, where we have assembled 50, I think 55 of the top photography instructors in the world. We're flying them all to Seattle, and they are presenting next to each other, with one another, independently,
Uh,
for a week. And there are, I don't even remember how many tracks and courses. It's like it's through the roof. But we're trying to just make that fire hose so rich, and it's a thing that you can't get. I mean, physical. You go, there's some large trade shows all over the world, in Asia and New York, and you can't. It's hard to take all that in. There's no one who's recording those. So if you're on one track and you miss what's going on the other track, you don't get access to it. So we're trying to make it so that in that same conference way, you can watch, you can toggle back and forth. We know these channels, but at the end of the day, if you are having that sense that you don't get to see everything you want to see, you can just press buy.
and
So
and we also know
it's
that
exciting, and we're expecting it. Of course, it's hard to measure these things, but we're pretty sure it's the largest education gathering of all time. It's probably Photoshop Week, which is just Photoshop, had 150,000 people participate. So we're much larger than that.
and we know that when you go to a conference, that there's never ringers in the sessions. We know that it's amazing how many times you see someone that's a keynoter that is also the mainline sponsor, the platinum sponsor. It's amazing
Yeah.
how those get divvied out, even though they always say, "Oh, we're impartial" and blah blah blah. Yeah. So I like the idea of content providers or content creators having control of the speaker base, because it's you guys aren't going to bring in anybody that's going to be selling an agenda. Ultimately everyone has an agenda no matter what. Let's just be straight up. If you're in business, or if you're a creator, if you're selling yourself, and that's going to be there inherently. But you shouldn't have to sell yourself. If you're that good, you should be sought out. And I think this is smart. What you guys are doing is you're seeking out the cream, or basically folks that you want to hear from, and you're bringing them in. It sounds like you guys are going to have an exciting week.
Sweet.
Um,
It's crazy. I'm here in New York working on some creative development for the brand, which I'm really excited about. And then on Monday, I speak at the Bloomberg conference here about education, the future of the creative classroom. And then I go back on Tuesday, and it's basically Tuesday through Friday of just high-fiving and wrangling all these 50 top photography educators in the world. I
and
can't
that's
wait. And being, again, that's the basis in part of Creative Live, is both my partner and co-founder Craig and myself. We have spent and are still spending our time in the creative worlds, right? And so to get to dive in deep with all your peers, and it's just going to be
but that's your primary passion. I'm looking at your personal website, and it looks like to me your personal passion is hardcore photography. That's what I see video up there as well, but is primarily your personal passion photography. What's your number one thing you love to do?
Yeah, I think that's the only career I've ever had in my life is as a professional photographer. I get to work for the you know, many of the top brands, the Fortune 100 brands, shooting ad campaigns all over the world, and that directing television commercials and short films and whatnot. Um, in part, you know, uh, my contribution to Creative Live is I started giving away information around what I was learning as a photographer. 10 years before it was cool to be transparent, I was actually vilified through that process because I was giving away trade secrets, if you will.
Right.
Um, and but what I saw was the power of the transference of knowledge in around the space because I went to the school of hard knocks, as I mentioned earlier. I quit all of the stuff that everybody else wanted me to do to pursue my career as an artist. And so there's that same trap, sort of trying to help the me of 10 years ago. And I'm still very active in um, as a creator, as a creative. I think it's a really important part to have the founder or chairman at Creative Live be a professional artist. That way we are always staying in touch with the core of who it is and what it is that we are. And that's part of the reason of bringing in really smart people around Craig and I to drive the business. So,
Well, that's a philosophy we had at my company too. Everyone that is part of the team was or is a content creator, and that way they know the trials and tribulations of number one, surviving and making money. Number two, knowing the trade, and by far we are not experts. We all came into this pretty late in life from a I was working in electronics, aviation electronics, and I've completely flipped gears, and it's really kind of strange because you work and you're in this profession, but in the back of your brain, there's something else out there that you want to do. And um, I think a lot of people find out late in life that what they were doing for a regular JB sucked, and they want to do something else. And it isn't too late to change
it's never
horses,
too
but
late.
it is financially when you have a family is there is definite risk there. And but I think that what you guys are doing is maybe making this possible for
I hope
people.
we're trying to make it so that nights and weekends can be really fruitful and productive, regardless of your age, regardless of your economic
Right.
background. Sort of pursue your dream. And that we are so fortunate. We get so many amazing success stories come back to us. I recently got an email just a day or two ago of a man who worked himself out of homelessness with a camera, and now he is a professional photographer and gives 15% of his earnings back to various charities. And that that the whether or not you can attribute that to Creative Live, but those sorts of stories, the fact of giving people an opportunity to pursue their passions in nights and weekends or off the clock, we're pretty excited about it. And we do get a lot of stories of like, yes, I'm in my 6th hour watching Creative Live while I'm at work. I probably need to get back to work and do. Yeah, sorry if we're responsible for numerous firings on account of like,
Well, I think most people, if you look at most jobs, I think a lot of people get the breadth of their 8 hour day done in about 45 minutes. That's at least the smart ones that are very productive do.
you can
Um,
do that 4-hour life from Tim Ferriss on Creative Live.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, oh, very good. Rob, I'll let you take it from here. Go ahead.
Well, I guess what's next for Creative Live? I mean, I know you've shared the Photo Week thing, but is there any other aspects of the site or what you guys are going to be pursuing here over the next year or so that you can share with us? And kind of from a broader perspective, not you don't have to share specifics, but what changes do you see coming here?
Sure, I feel like some new course offerings are always on the way.
Hmm.
We talked about conference stuff like Photo Week, which I already went into detail on. That's a big deal, and I think we'll do some more of that. We're really excited about the product, the interactivity online, and building in that sort of the mojo of the live experience for non-live parts of that. I feel like just a lot of product innovation. We are hiring engineers like crazy. If you go to our job sheet, we've got, I think, 20 jobs open right now. Um, so it's a fast-growing company, and we're adding a lot in the sort of the engineering part so that we can make that product experience really, really robust. So uh, if I was to segment it into two sort of categories, one is continued to broaden the course offerings and things like audio, which is we're diving more deeply into now, audio and music. The easy drum class, electronic dance music, some of that stuff. The lifestyle category, I think, will probably start to take a little bit more shape. And yeah, then the other part is the product. So we're going to keep hammering on that. It's really exciting. I get to roll in and look over the shoulder of super smart people and see what they're building, and thank my lucky stars every day.
Who do you guys use for your streaming platform then?
We like Ustream.
Oh,
Yeah, they're great partners for us. Brad Hunstable is the CEO over there. He's become a good friend, and they have just done a phenomenal job of providing a platform for folks like Creative Live and others to get to share content with the world. So
the challenge I've had with Ustream and take back to him is, if you're doing a tech show on Ustream, I don't want to see a baby diapers commercial or something. I've told Brad the same thing before. So, the relevancy of the advertising within the content is critical. And when you have
yeah,
people in your chat room screaming at you that that ad was stupid. And if you're working with him and driving, obviously, um, they have different relationships with different content creators, and sometimes you don't have ads in your content, which is
Yep.
good. But
yep,
I'll be honest with you, recently I've left all the platforms, and I was doing my own live streaming with Amazon as the provider, and of course paid that bill every month. But I'm pretty pleased right now with the YouTube Live platform. I'm actually they're close to really hurting companies like Livestream and Ustream. They're not there quite there yet, but with time they could be. So I think it's
yeah.
smart for those guys to have good partners like you to keep people coming back to the website.
Yeah, I think that whole industry is really experiencing a lot of growth, and if we as a culture are obsessed with now,
Right.
then you start. It's no wonder why live is exploding, right? And that's one of the reasons I think you guys both highlighted earlier that we Creative Live have tapped into something, and that live, the now part of being a part of a movement. Like, who watches the Super Bowl the day after the Super Bowl?
Right.
Yeah.
So we try to make a little Super Bowl of education every day with the classes that we create. And so the live, Ustream, live stream, YouTube Live, I think all those folks have a great opportunity here as that increasingly becomes a larger part of our culture.
One thing
So
that
Chase,
go ahead.
yeah, I see that you're using YouTube for all your on-demand videos. Do you see any issue with the YouTube platform going forward? Is it something that you're going to stick with, or do you even want to say or comment on that?
Um, so we at Creative Live and my own stuff based on photography and filmmaking, um, we put our videos out on YouTube because it's where the people are. It's the huge audience there on YouTube, um, and I feel like that's not going away. They're doing a great job. Vimeo, which has already been spoken about in our conversation today, they are also doing a great job. Just YouTube has a scale that few others have. With regard to YouTube Live, I think it's moving really quickly, but there are still, as you highlighted, there are still some issues like restarting. If we've got a broadcast and 30,000 people accidentally get kicked off, which is something that happens on YouTube Live, then we've got real issues. So I don't know. In short, I think everybody is moving forward in video streaming, whether it's live or not live, and there's plenty of room for all those folks to succeed. YouTube is going to continue to Ustream is going to continue to be our primary partner heading forward, and YouTube is always always dependable on the after the fact having been made videos. So
Yeah, one thing that I thought about, and actually a project that I've been working on here in Hawaii is, I live in a pretty unique place, and there's a lot of unique talent, content opportunities, but many of the things that I want to do is makes a lot of sense to investors, but the challenge in Hawaii is location. If you're going to do something in Hawaii, you have to be on the beach. You have to have exposure to, you got to be somewhere where you can see the ocean. You can't be stuck in a warehouse someplace. And, for you guys, I'm sure it's the same. It's just like you got Seattle and San Francisco. That's where you're going after your talent base. So I can see where there's lots of opportunities for similar type models that you guys are building in different locations based on just purely on location. So what would be your advice to someone like me who's thinking about doing something Hawaii centric, and it'd be more entertainment versus educational? You're building up the talent pool. How that's the biggest challenge that I think I would have is how are you, because you're doing a little different. But what would be your advice to someone that was starting up an entertainment network in Hawaii?
surfing.
Well, that's obviously would be part of it for sure.
Yeah.
Bartending.
Because it's definitely two different animals. Something that would be entertaining versus something that's educational is completely different genres, different challenges, I'm sure, with both.
For sure, for sure. Yeah. One of the things that as a photographer, location is mission critical for all the work that I do out in the world. I just got back from Iceland doing a campaign out there. We've got other shoots in Hong Kong and New Zealand coming up, and we get to, go to some of the most remarkable places in the world, and each of them offers something unique. And so I would focus that on like, what is the uniquely Hawaiian experience, and what can you do that other people in the world can't do, and how to
Right.
serve that up. So you got your issues. It's bartending, surfing, coconut water making.
It's the yeah. There's a lot of music stuff too. So that
Hula dancers, right?
Yeah, okay. That's not so unique to Hawaii. They have that in Polynesia too. So
Yeah.
well, we've been at this here about an hour and 22 minutes. We're gonna get close to wrapping this up. Rob, do you have any final questions for Chase?
I guess no. I just what's the best way for viewers of this show to find you and to learn more about Creative Live and all that stuff?
Sure. So it's a great way to wrap up. Creative Live, I think the best way to be intimately connected to it is to join the service. It's free to join. Just go give us your email address, and then we can learn a little bit about you and send you the stuff that's expressly relevant, so you can log in and create an account. And of course, we're on all the social spheres. That's one of the things about Creative Live that I love, is it's been social from the ground up. It's not an education company that has social strapped onto the side of it. The fact that we use Twitter and Facebook to communicate with the instructors in live fashion. So following us in those two spots in particular, or Google Plus. We have a strong following on Google Plus too. And then personally, it's just the same. Just ChaseJarvis.com, and you can pay attention to that stuff. Follow me. I'm basically Chase Jarvis on all the social stuff. So
Outstanding, and I look forward to breaking my credit card out over there and buying some courses and maybe even catching some stuff live when I can. Rob, I know you and I know next week you are headed to Phoenix. You have a engagement there you need to go to, and I am going to be flying solo here next week. So we're going to be working on getting a couple of guests on that are traditional content creators and having them talking about their challenges. If you're listening or watching today and you have a suggestion for a guest for us, hey, it's this as Chase was saying, crowdsource us out some suggestions, and we'll be happy to talk to those folks. And you can reach either Rob or I, or Todd, or Rob at newmedia.com, newmediashow.com, excuse me. Rob, anything beyond the 21st on guest lineup at this point?
I'm gonna try and get on a longtime radio broadcaster, Marty Reamer, who's gonna join us. I mean, he's the guy that spent many years in the Seattle market building a name for himself on the broadcast radio side, who's now a podcaster. So he's the one that I'm going after for the next new media show. So he's doing a podcast that's focused on the local content, around Seattle and the Northwest. So it'll be interesting to talk to him, being on the broadcast side as well as on the podcasting side to get his perspective. And if you're a podcaster and you want to get your podcast feed into Windows Phone or Zoom, send me an email to podcasts@microsoft.com and I'll be happy to add it.
And of course, you can follow Rob on Twitter at robgreenlee.com. And you can follow me here at Geek News is the place where you can follow me. But we hope that you've enjoyed today's new media show. Chase, thanks for New York's an exciting place to be on a Saturday. So we thank you for spending an hour and a half with us here out of your busy schedule. And enjoy New York and go to B&H and browse for me.
Got plenty to do, but thanks again for having me on the show. You guys are doing great stuff, and it's an honor to be a part of it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us, Chase.
Pleasure. Ciao for now, guys. Have a great one.
All right.
Okay.
And everyone else that's watching, thanks for being here. And we'll see you back here next week live or via download or wherever you're watching us, via iTunes, via the Zoom, not Zoom, via Windows Phone, or however you're watching us. Thanks for being here. Everyone take care. We'll see you next time. Aloha.
Ciao.
Okay, the recording is off. Stream is still live, so give me just a second. Everyone on the live stream, see you later.